In the year 1890, Halloween was far from the flashy costumes and candy-laden streets of modern times. Instead, it was a night of mystery, superstition, and quiet wonder. The air was crisp with the early chills of autumn, and fog clung to the cobblestone streets like a silken veil. In parlors and drawing rooms, candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls, and the people of the Victorian era prepared for a night that blended whimsy, fear, and the supernatural. For Victorians, Halloween was a threshold between the known and the unknown. They believed the veil between the living and the spirit world thinned on this night, allowing ghosts, spirits, and unseen forces to cross into our world. With careful preparation, they sought to honor the spirits, amuse themselves with fortune-telling games, and protect themselves from any mischievous or malevolent entities that might wander from the beyond. Homes were adorned subtly but deliberately. Apples, nuts, and small offerings were left on tables, part of a tradition of hospitality for unseen guests. Candles were placed strategically, both to light the way for friendly spirits and to ward off dark presences. Mirrors and reflective surfaces were often avoided at night, as it was believed that spirits could peer through them, leading to unforeseen misfortune. Fortune-telling became the centerpiece of many social gatherings. Young women might attempt to divine their future husbands, dropping rings into water or tossing apples, interpreting the reflections, movements, and sounds as messages from fate itself. Cards were laid, and charms consulted. Each ritual was a blend of playful curiosity and genuine belief, a mirror of Victorian fascination with both the mystical and the unknown. Children were involved too, though in quieter ways than today. They played games with hidden meanings, bobbing for apples, tracing symbols on paper, or whispering secret questions to the spirits of ancestors. Each activity carried a mixture of fun, superstition, and caution, teaching lessons about respect for the unseen and the power of ritual. Even in larger cities, Halloween retained its intimate, eerie charm. People gathered in candlelit parlors, attending readings, performances, or small masquerades. The costumes were not always ghoulish. Often they were symbolic, representing myth, folklore, or allegory, and allowed participants to step briefly into the mysterious, fantastical world of imagination and belief. Food and drink played a subtle role. Apples, baked goods, and nuts were shared, often accompanied by whispered stories of spirits, warnings, or curiosities. Meals were not just sustenance. They were ritual offerings, blending hospitality and superstition, ensuring that the night passed in favor of the living and the unseen alike. The essence of Halloween in 1890 was a balance between the known and the unknown, between amusement and belief, between caution and curiosity. It was a night that allowed humans to engage with the strange, the mystical, and the forgotten, a time to step into the world of spirits while still anchored by hearth and home. In this gentle darkness, shadows told stories, whispers hinted at mysteries, and each candle flicker reminded the Victorians that they were participants in a night that had long been both feared and celebrated. The rituals, games, and preparations were more than tradition. They were a way to engage with the world's mysteries, to find order in uncertainty, and to keep the memory of the dead alive in the flickering light of the living. On Halloween night in 1890, curiosity about the future took center stage. Fortune-telling was not merely entertainment. It was a way to peer into the unknown, to seek guidance from forces that were believed to hover just beyond human perception. Parlors and candlelit rooms became stages for these mysterious rituals, each designed to reveal love, fate, and the paths that lay ahead. Young women were often the focus of these divinations, especially regarding matters of the heart. One popular ritual involved apple paring. A girl would peel an apple in a single long ribbon, careful to avoid breaking it. The peel was then tossed over her shoulder, forming shapes that could be interpreted as letters, the initials of a future spouse. Every curl, twist, and placement of the peel held meaning, and the anticipation in the room was palpable, as friends whispered interpretations and predictions. Another favorite game involved nuts. Walnuts, hazelnuts, or chestnuts might be roasted in the fire, each containing a tiny slip of paper or a hidden charm. Participants would select a nut at random, and the object they found would foretell love, wealth, or success. Simple though it seemed, these rituals carried weight, blending superstition with the thrill of chance. Cards and small divination sets were also used. Paper and ink allowed for written messages from the spirits, while simple decks of playing cards became tools for prophecy. The arrangement of the cards, the sequence, and the orientation were all interpreted to reveal hidden truths. Victorians believed that the unseen world could communicate subtly, offering glimpses into the future through these playful, delicate systems. Bobbing for apples, familiar today as a children's game, was originally rich with symbolism. Apples were dropped into water, and each participant would try to bite one without using their hands. The shape, the splash, and even who succeeded first were interpreted as signs of fortune, personality traits, or romantic prospects. Every movement in the water was a coded message, a reflection of destiny seen through the lens of tradition and superstition. Candles and reflections were also essential. Mirrors were sometimes used for more daring divinations. A girl might sit in a darkened room, candle in hand, and gaze into the reflective surface, hoping to see the face of a future spouse or a glimpse of destiny. The dim light, the trembling shadows, and the faint flicker of flame all contributed to a heightened sense of anticipation and mystery. Divination was not limited to individuals. Groups participated in spirit-led games, calling upon the presence of ancestors or unseen beings to guide the results. The practice blurred the line between play and ritual, creating an atmosphere charged with wonder and subtle fear. The Victorian fascination with the unseen made these activities both thrilling and sacred, as each outcome was considered meaningful and potentially prophetic. Even the simplest household objects were imbued with mystical purpose. Rings, ribbons, or small charms could be incorporated into games to reveal hidden truths. Tossed into the fire, dropped into water, or hidden under pillows, these objects became conduits for the unseen world, offering messages that only the initiated could interpret. Every action, no matter how small, carried layers of meaning and consequence. Fortune-telling on Halloween was, at its core, a bridge. It connected the living to the unseen, curiosity to belief, and play to profound reflection. For a single night, the ordinary rules of life were suspended, and the mysteries of fate, love, and destiny were explored through ritual, observation, and imagination. In candlelight and hushed whispers, Victorians engaged with forces they could neither fully understand nor control. They sought insight, reassurance, and perhaps a little thrill, knowing that the night offered both possibility and enchantment. Through these games and divinations, Halloween became not just a celebration, but a portal, a night in which the boundaries between the known and the unknown, the living and the spirit, seemed almost imperceptibly thin. In Victorian Halloween of 1890, ghosts were far more than stories whispered in the dark. They were believed to walk among the living, drawn to the thinning veil between worlds. The night was alive with expectation, a delicate tension between fear and fascination. Candles flickered in the parlors, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to dance in rhythm with the unseen, while the quiet rustle of autumn leaves outside added a haunting soundtrack to the evening. Many families prepared for ghostly visitors with care. Chairs were often set out for spirits, and small offerings of food or drink were left at the table, a gesture of hospitality and respect. These practices reflected a belief that acknowledging spirits could invite favor, while neglect or disrespect could bring misfortune. To Victorians, Halloween was a time to honor the dead, maintain connection with ancestors, and navigate the delicate balance between life and the afterlife. Séances and spiritual gatherings were a centerpiece of the night for those drawn to the mystical. In dimly lit rooms, participants would hold hands, focusing on the unseen presence they hoped to summon. Tables would tremble, pendulums swing, and faint whispers were interpreted as messages from beyond. The atmosphere was both thrilling and solemn. The possibility of encountering the unknown was a heady combination of curiosity, reverence, and fear. Stories of ghostly apparitions were shared, often recounted with hushed voices to heighten suspense. Manor houses, cobbled streets, and old graveyards became the settings for tales of lingering spirits, tragic loves, and unfinished business. Each story was both entertainment and moral lesson, reminding the living of the fragile boundaries between life and death, and the respect owed to those who had passed. Children, too, engaged with the supernatural, though in playful, imaginative ways. They played games of spirit catching and whispered questions to empty chairs, believing that the spirits of the night could reveal secrets, guide fortunes, or offer gentle mischief. Even their laughter was tinged with awe, a reflection of a world where the extraordinary was never far from the ordinary. Objects within the home were thought to hold spiritual energy. Mirrors, clocks, and even furniture could be conduits for messages from beyond. Victorian superstition dictated careful placement, careful handling, and sometimes avoidance, especially on nights when the boundary between worlds felt thin. Every shadow, creak, or flicker of light could be interpreted as proof of another presence, a signal that the unseen world was near and watching. The belief in spirits extended beyond personal encounters. Communities often honored the dead collectively, lighting candles in cemeteries, decorating graves, and holding small rituals to acknowledge the lives that had come before. Halloween became a shared space for reflection, remembrance, and cautious engagement with forces beyond understanding. Even the fear of the supernatural was structured and meaningful. It taught respect, caution, and attentiveness to the world. Doors were bolted, candles tended carefully, and rituals observed meticulously. The Victorians understood that the night was not just entertainment. It was a delicate dance with the unknown, a rehearsal in mindfulness, observation, and imagination. Ghosts, spirits, and apparitions were not mere superstition. They were part of the fabric of Halloween. They gave shape to curiosity, context to games, and meaning to rituals. In their presence, the night became magical, mysterious, and infinitely compelling. To encounter a ghost, or even to imagine one, was to step into a world where the impossible seemed possible, where the veil between life and death could be sensed, if not fully understood. Through these ghostly encounters, Victorians engaged deeply with mortality, memory, and imagination. Halloween became a night when the familiar transformed into the mysterious, the mundane into the magical, and the living into witnesses of the unseen. It was a night of reflection, thrill, and wonder, a night when the past and the present intertwined, and the spirit of the age came alive in candlelight and shadow. Halloween in 1890 was steeped in customs that seem peculiar to modern eyes, yet each carried significance, history, and the weight of belief. From hidden charms to playful omens, Victorians approached the night with a blend of reverence, curiosity, and delight in the mysterious. One of the most popular practices involved apples and nuts, each with symbolic meaning. Apples were sometimes peeled into a single curling ribbon tossed over a shoulder, and the shape or initial formed by the peel interpreted as a clue to one's future spouse. Nuts could be roasted, and slips of paper hidden inside foretold fortunes, love, or prosperity. These games were innocent, yet they carried profound anticipation, connecting the mundane act of play with the desire to glimpse fate itself. Another curious tradition involved household rituals designed to protect against mischievous spirits. It was common to hang onions or garlic over doorways, believing these simple bulbs could ward off evil. Shoes might be placed in a particular arrangement, and chimneys tended carefully to ensure that spirits did not find opportunities for mischief. Every corner of the home was carefully considered, with actions both practical and symbolic woven together in a delicate tapestry of precaution. Candles were central to these superstitions. Beyond providing light, they were believed to guide benevolent spirits while repelling harmful ones. Many families lit extra candles on windowsills or tables, each flame a silent prayer for protection, prosperity, or insight. In dimly lit rooms, the flickering glow brought shadows to life, and every movement of light and dark became a potential message from the unseen. Fortune-telling extended to dreams and personal rituals. Victorians believed that the night could offer visions of the future in slumber, especially if specific rituals were performed before bed. Lying with a mirror reflecting the moonlight or placing a slice of apple under the pillow might bring dreams revealing one's future partner, wealth, or fate. These practices blurred the lines between superstition, entertainment, and spiritual engagement, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation and wonder. Objects found in nature, leaves, acorns, feathers, were often imbued with symbolic meaning. They were collected and used in divination, tucked into pockets, or arranged carefully around the home. Each held a narrative, a small story whispered between the living and the spirits of the night. Even the simplest element of the natural world could become a messenger, a guide, or a talisman. Social gatherings were also infused with these customs. Parties, teas, and small dances incorporated games that allowed participants to engage with superstition while enjoying company. Chairs were arranged in patterns believed to predict future marriages. Plates and cups might be used in playful omens. The night was structured yet spontaneous, ceremonial yet joyful, a space in which the living could explore the invisible with safety and delight. Fear, too, was carefully orchestrated. Children and adults alike reveled in gentle frights, shadows cast by candlelight, the creak of a floorboard, or the whispered recounting of ghostly tales. These experiences reinforced vigilance, attention to detail, and respect for the unseen. They were lessons in caution and awareness, wrapped in entertainment, laughter, and shared wonder. Even the most mundane actions carried ritual significance. Eating, drinking, and movement around the home could be tied to subtle superstitions. Each step, each choice, each gesture was an engagement with a world that balanced the natural and the supernatural, reminding Victorians that Halloween was not merely a night of amusement, but a night in which the ordinary became extraordinary. Through these strange customs and forgotten superstitions, Halloween in 1890 was transformed from a simple evening into a richly layered experience. Every action, every object, every whispered word connected participants to centuries of belief, a living tapestry of tradition and imagination. It was a night in which the veil between worlds was not merely imagined, but felt, a night in which curiosity, respect, and wonder intertwined to create an atmosphere unlike any other. The Victorian parlor was the stage upon which Halloween came alive. In 1890, homes were carefully prepared for the night, with candles, lanterns, and carefully arranged furniture, creating a space that was simultaneously intimate, inviting, and slightly unsettling. Shadows stretched and danced across walls, flickering with life of their own, turning ordinary objects into companions of the supernatural. Candlelight was both functional and symbolic. It illuminated the room, revealing the faces of guests and the objects of games, yet it also served as a bridge to the unseen. Shadows cast on the walls might suggest spirits nearby or animate the imagination, turning chairs, tables, and drapery into silent actors in a story written by light and perception. Every flicker, every subtle change in brightness added depth and anticipation to the night. Parlors were arranged deliberately. Chairs were placed in circles for fortune-telling or spirit games. Tables were set with apples, nuts, charms, and cards, each an instrument of divination or play. Mirrors were covered, or sometimes strategically revealed, to heighten the sense of mystery. The arrangement of objects was more than decoration. It was an integral part of the ritual, creating a carefully orchestrated stage for participation in the magical and the mysterious. The scent of the room added to the enchantment. Candles with subtle fragrances, herbs burned in small burners, and the aroma of baked apples, nuts, and spiced cakes created a sensory experience that was both comforting and slightly uncanny. Every inhale was a reminder that the night was special, that ordinary spaces had been transformed into portals of ritual, anticipation, and reflection. Sounds, too, played their part. The gentle crackle of the hearth, the rustle of clothing or paper, the whispers of participants, and even the creak of a floorboard were woven into the fabric of the evening. Silence was as important as noise. In the quiet moments, imaginations filled the gaps, and the unseen world seemed to hover just beyond perception. Guests moved with awareness, knowing that even their steps could participate in the night's delicate magic. Laughter was careful, soft, and shared. Whispers conveyed secrets, predictions, or subtle guidance, reinforcing both social connection and the sense of wonder. The parlor became a living organism, responsive to thought, movement, and perception, a space where the tangible and intangible coexisted in delicate balance. Lighting was adjusted subtly to affect mood. Dim corners encouraged imagination, while small candles highlighted objects of focus: an apple, a nut, a charm, or a reflection in a silver tray. The interplay of light and dark created a rhythm, a choreography that guided attention, anticipation, and emotion throughout the evening. Even the furniture seemed to participate. Armchairs and settees became thrones for fortune-tellers. Tables served as altars for offerings and divination. Walls, draped in textiles, muffled sound and intensified the glow of the candles. Every detail was considered, creating an environment in which imagination could roam freely, and the presence of the unseen could be felt without being confirmed. The atmosphere of the candlelit parlor transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. Participants were not merely playing games, they were stepping into a world shaped by tradition, superstition, and careful attention to detail. The night was a performance, a ritual, and a shared exploration of the mysterious, all contained within the warmth and shadows of a Victorian home. By crafting such spaces, the Victorians demonstrated an intuitive understanding of ambience, psychology, and the human fascination with the unknown. The candlelit parlor was both a sanctuary and a stage, a place where imagination, belief, and curiosity could flourish, and where Halloween was experienced as a richly layered journey through light, shadow, and wonder. In 1890, Halloween was a night for stepping beyond the ordinary, and costumes and masks were the medium through which transformation occurred. Unlike the commercialized costumes of today, Victorian dress was deeply symbolic, imaginative, and often connected to folklore, superstition, or societal narratives. Participants used disguise not only for amusement, but to explore identity, fate, and the unseen world. Masks were central to this transformation. Crafted from paper, fabric, or carved wood, they concealed familiar faces and allowed wearers to inhabit alternate personas. A simple mask could turn a young woman into a mysterious spirit, a playful trickster, or a figure from legend. The anonymity of the mask encouraged boldness, curiosity, and interaction with others in ways that the everyday world would never allow. Costumes were often imbued with meaning. People dressed as supernatural beings, ghosts, witches, or fairies to honor spirits or reenact old tales. Some costumes reflected fears, embodying creatures of folklore meant to teach caution or inspire awe. Others represented aspiration or whimsy, turning the wearer into a temporary inhabitant of the mysterious, the fantastical, or the otherworldly. In every stitch and fold, intention and imagination met. Children played an essential role in these transformations. Their costumes were often simpler but equally potent, turning them into little travelers between the known and unknown. Masks might conceal the face, allowing them to act out roles in games that predicted the future, explored ghost stories, or enacted small rituals. The act of dressing up became a lesson in creativity, play, and the gentle negotiation of fear and excitement. Adults embraced disguise with theatricality. Parlor gatherings and small parties encouraged elaborate dress, where masks, veils, and props contributed to a shared performance. Dancing, games, and fortune-telling were enhanced by the mystery of the costume, which allowed participants to interact in ways impossible in their daily lives. The play of identity and disguise heightened the enchantment, reinforcing the night's magical atmosphere. Masks and costumes were not only playful, they were protective. Some garments were believed to shield wearers from malevolent spirits, confusing unseen forces or allowing them to move safely through the night. Superstition intertwined with creativity, as the act of hiding one's face became both an exploration of imagination and a strategy for engagement with the unknown. Even household pets sometimes participated, adorned in tiny, whimsical costumes. Their presence added warmth, humor, and unpredictability, bridging the line between the familiar and the fantastical. The sights, sounds, and movements of costumed companions created layers of engagement, enriching the shared experience of Halloween night. Through disguise, participants experienced a temporary liberation from societal norms. Masks and costumes allowed for experimentation with identity, expression of fears, and exploration of the mystical. They created opportunities to act, interact, and engage with rituals and games in ways that reinforced the night's atmosphere of wonder, anticipation, and playful tension. Ultimately, costumes and masks were the visible manifestation of Halloween's spirit. They embodied curiosity, creativity, and reverence for the unknown. They allowed participants to cross thresholds, blur boundaries, and engage fully with a night that celebrated transformation, imagination, and the unseen forces that had long captivated the human mind. In 1890, the art of transformation was not mere entertainment. It was a ritualized dance with mystery. Each mask, each costume, and each choice of attire was a step into a world where imagination and superstition intertwined. A night where the ordinary became extraordinary, and the boundaries between reality and the supernatural were delicately, beautifully suspended. No Victorian Halloween was complete without stories whispered in the flickering glow of candlelight. In 1890, the parlor became a theater of imagination, where shadows danced on the walls and voices carried the weight of centuries. Storytelling was both entertainment and ritual, a way to confront fears, honor tradition, and explore the boundaries between the living and the unseen. Families and friends gathered close, leaning toward one another as the firelight played across their faces. Tales of spirits, witches, and restless souls were recounted with care, each word measured to maximize suspense without tipping into terror. The stories were often drawn from folklore, local legend, or personal anecdote, blending history and imagination into a tapestry that was as instructive as it was thrilling. Some stories were cautionary, designed to teach lessons about morality, respect, and attentiveness. Children learn the consequences of misbehavior through tales of wandering spirits or mischievous entities. Adults reflected on the fragility of life, the inevitability of fate, and the thin line between fortune and misfortune. Every tale reinforced the night's dual purpose: delight and edification, amusement and contemplation. Ghostly accounts were particularly favored. Old manors, abandoned cottages, and forgotten graveyards provided inspiration for tales of lingering souls. Whispers of unfinished business, tragic romances, and sudden apparitions captivated listeners. The candlelight flickered in time with the narrative, shadows elongating and contracting, giving life to the stories and making the room itself a participant in the unfolding drama. Séances and spiritual games often followed storytelling, with participants attempting to summon or communicate with spirits referenced in the tales. Tables might tremble, pendulums swing, or faint knocks answer whispered questions, heightening the sensation that the night itself was alive with possibility. Even those skeptical of spirits found themselves caught in the moment, their imaginations fueled by candlelight, story, and ritual. Humor and playfulness were intertwined with the suspense. Children giggled nervously, adults exchanged knowing glances, and occasional bursts of laughter punctuated the tension. This balance kept fear from overwhelming enjoyment, allowing Halloween to remain an enchanting experience, where the thrill of the unknown was tempered by safety and social connection. Storytelling also served to preserve history and folklore. Tales passed down through families and communities maintained continuity, connecting generations with shared beliefs, fears, and lessons. Each retelling was slightly altered, enriched, and embellished, ensuring that the spirit of the past remained vibrant while adapting to the sensibilities of the present. Even mundane objects became props in the storytelling. A silver tray could reflect a ghostly face, a crack in the floorboard could become a portent, and the flicker of a candle could suggest a hidden presence. Victorian storytellers understood the power of environment, manipulating light, shadow, and sound to enhance narrative impact and immerse listeners in a world where the boundary between the natural and supernatural felt impossibly thin. In these candlelit parlors, Victorian Halloween became a multi-sensory experience. Sight, sound, touch, and imagination intertwined, transforming ordinary spaces into arenas of wonder and reflection. The stories whispered and the legends shared were not merely entertainment. They were invitations to explore curiosity, confront fear, and celebrate the mysteries that hovered just beyond the ordinary. Through the act of storytelling, the night gained depth, structure, and meaning. Participants learned the delicate art of observation, the thrill of anticipation, and the quiet power of imagination. Each tale, each whisper, each shadow cast by candlelight contributed to a night in which history, superstition, and creativity coalesced. A night that was remembered long after the final candle had burned low. In Victorian Halloween of 1890, food was never merely sustenance. It was imbued with symbolism, ritual, and playful superstition. The kitchen and dining room became stages for culinary enchantment, where simple ingredients were transformed into meaningful tokens, each bite carrying a hint of fate, fortune, or festive delight. Apples were central to the season's culinary magic. Beyond bobbing games and fortune-telling rituals, apples were baked, spiced, or peeled in intricate patterns. A curled apple peel tossed over the shoulder might reveal the initials of a future spouse, while slices hidden under pillows promised dreams of love or wealth. Every gesture, every preparation, and every taste was layered with anticipation and meaning. Nuts played a similar role. Roasted chestnuts, hazelnuts, and walnuts were sometimes hollowed or filled with slips of paper inscribed with fortunes. As participants cracked the shells and discovered the hidden messages, suspense mingled with delight. A simple snack became a portal to possibility, a tangible connection to the mysterious forces that the night celebrated. Baked goods were often spiced and sweetened with care, shaped into symbolic forms or decorated to reflect folklore themes. Cakes might contain charms or tiny trinkets, each promising a playful prediction of the eater's future. Bread, tarts, and puddings were prepared with attention to detail, the act of baking itself considered part of the ritual, imbuing the food with intention, care, and a hint of magic. Candies and confections, though simpler than modern Halloween treats, carried meaning. Sugar, honey, and spices were not just flavors, they were symbolic of sweetness, prosperity, and protection. Offering these delicacies to friends, neighbors, or unseen spirits was an act of both hospitality and superstition, reinforcing the belief that generosity and care could attract goodwill and favor. Even the arrangement of the table was intentional. Platters, bowls, and cups were positioned with ritualistic care, ensuring that offerings were visible to both guests and spirits. The flicker of candlelight on polished silver, the subtle aroma of roasted nuts and baked apples, and the gentle clink of utensils contributed to an atmosphere of mystery and anticipation. Every sensory detail heightened the sense that the night was alive with unseen observers and potential revelations. Fortune-telling and food often intersected. Hidden charms in pastries or nuts revealed romantic prospects, wealth, or guidance, while shared dishes provided opportunities for social bonding and playful competition. The act of eating became participatory theater, where consumption, prediction, and social interaction intertwined seamlessly. Even mundane ingredients carried superstition. Salt, believed to purify and protect, was sprinkled to ward off misfortune. Herbs like rosemary, sage, and thyme were included for luck, health, and protection. Each choice in the kitchen reflected a careful balance of practicality and mystical intent, demonstrating the Victorian understanding that the physical and symbolic were inseparable on this enchanted night. In this way, Halloween feasts were more than culinary endeavors. They were instruments of engagement with the unseen, exercises in social cohesion, and demonstrations of imagination and belief. Every dish, every morsel, and every gesture at the table contributed to the rich tapestry of rituals, superstitions, and stories that defined the night. Through food, the Victorians connected body, mind, and spirit. They celebrated abundance while honoring tradition, indulged in pleasure while observing ritual, and transformed simple ingredients into expressions of curiosity, hope, and reverence. On Halloween night, the kitchen and dining room became magical realms where taste, symbol, and superstition intertwined, enriching the night's enchantment and ensuring that each participant left the table both nourished and spellbound. Halloween in 1890 was a night when children were active participants, engaging in games that were both entertaining and steeped in superstition. These playful rituals allowed young ones to explore the mysteries of the night, learn about social customs, and even glimpse the future through fun, symbolic activities. One of the most beloved games involved apples. Bobbing for apples, a practice still familiar today, had layers of meaning in Victorian times. Children would attempt to bite floating apples without using their hands, each success or failure interpreted as a sign of luck, personality, or future fortune. The splash of water, the angle of the apple, and the skill of the participant were all read as subtle messages from the unseen, blending play with a sense of mysticism. Another game involved nuts. Each nut might hide a charm or a slip of paper, revealing a playful prediction about love, wealth, or destiny. Children eagerly cracked shells, whispering hopes and giggling at surprises. These small rituals were exciting in themselves, but also served as lessons in patience, attention, and the idea that the ordinary world could hold hidden meaning. Fortune-telling games extended to small household objects. Mirrors, ribbons, and coins were used to divine outcomes. A coin might be dropped into a cup of water, its ripples read for clues. A ribbon could be arranged in patterns, revealing initials or symbols. Children were taught to pay attention to subtle signs, blending observation, imagination, and superstition in a way that shaped both play and thought. Masks and costumes were central to the fun. Children dressed as fairies, spirits, or playful ghosts, stepping into roles that blurred reality and imagination. Disguise allowed them to explore curiosity without fear, interact with others creatively, and participate fully in the rituals of the night. Costumes transformed ordinary play into immersive experiences, turning a simple gathering into a journey through mystery, imagination, and the unseen. Games often included elements of prediction and chance. For instance, children might throw shoes over their shoulders, believing that the direction in which a shoe landed could foretell whom they would marry or what the coming year would bring. Apples, nuts, and small tokens hidden in foods or beneath pillows created suspense, blending delight with superstition. Every success, failure, or surprising result became a story to share, reinforcing both social bonds and the magical atmosphere of Halloween. Storytelling was also a component of children's play. Adults would whisper ghostly tales while children listened attentively, sometimes acting out scenes or responding with imaginative interpretations. Through these activities, the young were introduced to cultural knowledge, moral lessons, and the art of suspense, all within a safe and playful environment. The line between education and entertainment was delicately blurred, creating a night rich in meaning, memory, and imagination. Even outdoor games reflected superstition. Children ventured into gardens, orchards, or small woods under supervision, searching for hidden charms, observing signs in nature, or playing games that symbolically represented the fortunes of the year ahead. These excursions connected them to the natural world, the rhythms of the seasons, and the folklore that imbued Halloween with its unique character. The playful divinations were designed to teach, delight, and thrill simultaneously. Every apple bobbed for, every nut cracked, and every shoe tossed carried layers of meaning, linking action to outcome, belief to interpretation, and imagination to reality. Children learned that even small gestures could hold significance, and that the night itself was a space where ordinary rules were suspended in favor of wonder and curiosity. Through games and playful rituals, children became full participants in Victorian Halloween. They were not passive observers, but active explorers of superstition, tradition, and storytelling. Their laughter, anticipation, and engagement ensured that the night remained lively, meaningful, and steeped in the rich tapestry of customs that defined the era. By the end of the evening, the children had navigated a world of shadows, charms, and mysterious signs. They carried home memories of games, fortunes, and shared stories, internalizing lessons of attentiveness, imagination, and respect for the unseen. Victorian Halloween was, in essence, a school of subtle magic, teaching its youngest participants to observe, reflect, and delight in the mysteries that surrounded them. Halloween in 1890 was more than games, costumes, or candles. It was a night that embodied the very spirit of All Hallows Eve. It was a time when the ordinary world softened at the edges, when superstition, imagination, and ritual converged to create a unique experience that lingered long after the final candle had burned. The night held a dual nature. It was both playful and solemn, whimsical and reflective. Victorians understood that the thinning veil between the living and the dead required both respect and curiosity. To ignore the unseen forces was considered careless, yet to fear them entirely was to miss the wonder of the evening. In this balance, Halloween became a celebration of awareness, mindfulness, and participation in the mysteries of life and death. Rituals of hospitality, such as leaving offerings of food and drink, exemplified the belief that life was intertwined with those who had passed. Candles, mirrors, and charms were not mere superstition. They were instruments through which humans acknowledged, communicated with, and sometimes protected themselves from forces beyond understanding. The very act of preparation, from cleaning and arranging the home to planning games and divinations, was itself a ritual of mindfulness, intention, and respect. The cultural and spiritual significance extended to storytelling, which served as both entertainment and moral instruction. Tales of ghosts, witches, and spirits were carefully recounted to teach lessons about behavior, foresight, and the unseen consequences of action. Every story carried a message, every whisper of suspense a reminder that life and death were entwined, and that attention, imagination, and respect were virtues to be cultivated. Fortune-telling and playful divinations were not trivial. They were acts of engagement with destiny. Apples, nuts, charms, and reflections provided insights into love, wealth, and health, while also teaching participants to observe, reflect, and anticipate. Each ritual, whether simple or elaborate, allowed individuals to feel a connection with forces larger than themselves, creating a sense of continuity between the present and the past, the living and the dead. Even the aesthetics of the night carried meaning. Candlelit parlors, shadowed corners, and carefully arranged objects created an environment in which perception was heightened, imagination activated, and the ordinary transformed into the extraordinary. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound allowed participants to inhabit a world where mystery was tangible, and every detail contributed to a heightened sense of wonder. The act of dressing in costume and mask symbolized more than disguise. It represented the possibility of transformation, a brief crossing into another state of being. Participants could inhabit a different persona, explore fears and desires, and engage with the mystical in a safe, structured manner. This interplay of identity, imagination, and ritual reinforced the night's symbolic richness. Children's games, playful divinations, and shared feasts all contributed to the spirit of Halloween as a communal experience. The night encouraged collaboration, observation, and reflection, fostering a sense of connection not only between people, but also between the living and the unseen. Victorian Halloween was a time to engage fully with curiosity, fear, joy, and reverence. A night in which every action and interaction was imbued with meaning. In essence, All Hallows Eve was a celebration of the human capacity to find magic in the ordinary, to acknowledge the mysteries of life and death, and to participate consciously in a world layered with meaning. It was a night of awareness, imagination, and ritual, where every flickering candle, whispered story, and playful game contributed to a living tradition that honored both the past and the present. Halloween of 1890 was a testament to human creativity, belief, and reverence. It was a night that taught attention to detail, respect for the unseen, and delight in the unknown. The spirit of All Hallows Eve was not bound to a single moment. It was a living presence, experienced fully through ritual, play, and imagination, and remembered long after the night had passed. As Halloween night in 1890 gradually drew to a close, a subtle shift took place. The laughter, whispers, and games that had filled the candlelit parlors began to soften, replaced by a gentle quiet that marked the transition from activity to reflection. The night, rich in superstition, ritual, and imagination, now invited contemplation of what had been experienced and what mysteries might linger. Homes were tidied, yet not entirely. Candles were allowed to burn down slowly, their fading light creating long shadows that seemed to stretch into the corners of memory. Small offerings of food or charms, once part of games or rituals, were left in place to honor the unseen visitors of the night. Each act, even as the evening wound down, reinforced the connection between the living and the spiritual, the known and the mysterious. Participants often reflected on fortunes discovered during the evening. Apples bobbed for, nuts cracked, and charms found were considered meaningful, offering insight into love, health, and future prospects. Adults quietly discussed the results of divinations, sharing interpretations with one another, while children recounted their experiences with giggles and excitement. Every outcome was woven into the fabric of memory, a tangible record of the night's enchantment. Stories were revisited in hushed tones. Tales of ghosts, spirits, and forgotten legends were retold more softly, their purpose shifting from entertainment to reflection. Candlelight flickered on familiar faces, now thoughtful rather than anticipatory. The atmosphere of suspense gave way to introspection, as participants considered what the night had revealed about themselves, their families, and the unseen world around them. Even the rituals themselves were gently concluded. Mirrors might be covered once more, objects carefully returned to their usual places, and protective charms removed or stored with care. These acts signaled both respect for tradition and a return to everyday life, acknowledging that the night of mystery was ending, but the lessons and memories could endure. Music, if present, would be soft, melodic, and calming, blending seamlessly with the quiet hum of conversation and the occasional crackle from the hearth. The senses, fully engaged throughout the night, now relaxed, allowing participants to absorb the full weight of experience. Every aroma, sound, and shadow contributed to a lingering sense of magic and reflection. For children, this time was often one of recounting and sharing. Excited whispers about predictions, games, and discoveries circulated as they prepared to return home or retire to bed. Parents encouraged storytelling and reflection, reinforcing lessons learned about attention, observation, and respect for both the living and the unseen. The playful energy of the night softened into fond memory, leaving an impression that would last well beyond the candle's final flicker. Even in the quiet moments, the spirit of Halloween was present. The flickering shadows reminded participants of the mysteries that had been acknowledged, the imaginations that had been engaged, and the connections that had been celebrated. Every small act of tidying, every whispered remark, and every thoughtful glance reinforced the sense that Halloween was more than a single evening. It was a ritual of awareness, reflection, and shared human experience. As the final candles burned low, and the night prepared to give way to the coming day, a sense of calm satisfaction pervaded the home. Participants understood that the rituals, games, and stories had accomplished more than amusement. They had engaged with tradition, superstition, and imagination, leaving each person enriched, thoughtful, and attuned to the mysteries that had hovered so tantalizingly close throughout the evening. Halloween in 1890 did not end with the extinguishing of candles alone. It persisted in memory, in conversation, and in the quiet recognition that the ordinary world had been transformed, if only for a night, into a realm of wonder, reflection, and subtle magic. As Halloween of 1890 faded into the quiet hours of early morning, the night left behind more than empty plates, extinguished candles, or tidied parlors. It left memories, vivid, layered, and enduring. Each participant carried home experiences that had touched imagination, curiosity, and belief, experiences that would be recounted for years to come, shaping the way individuals and families perceived the season, the unseen, and the extraordinary. For children, memories were immediate and sensory. The thrill of apple bobbing, the suspense of cracking nuts to reveal hidden fortunes, and the exhilaration of costumes and masks lingered long after the games had ended. Shadows cast by candlelight, whispered stories of ghosts, and the feel of mysterious charms in small hands became embedded in their recollections. These early experiences of wonder and ritual shaped their understanding of Halloween as a night when the ordinary transformed into something magical, a lesson carried into adolescence and adulthood. Adults reflected differently, with a layered awareness of symbolism, tradition, and social cohesion. The rituals of the night, fortune-telling, storytelling, costumes, and the careful arrangements of the home were not only entertaining but instructive. They reinforced attentiveness, respect for customs, and an appreciation for the delicate balance between play and reverence, between curiosity and caution. Each candle extinguished marked the completion of a carefully orchestrated performance, leaving participants with a sense of accomplishment, connection, and introspection. Families and communities preserved these memories through storytelling and repeated ritual. Tales of the night's successes, humorous mishaps, or subtle supernatural occurrences were shared over meals, in letters, and during future gatherings. Each retelling preserved the atmosphere of 1890 Halloween, ensuring that the customs, superstitions, and playful engagements of the night would endure across generations. The lasting legacy of Halloween in 1890 extended beyond individual memory to cultural significance. The night exemplified a collective fascination with the unseen, the mysterious, and the transformative. It reinforced social bonds, created shared experiences, and celebrated human imagination in ways that were deeply personal yet widely communal. Through games, stories, costumes, and rituals, participants engaged with both the living and the spectral, fostering a sense of wonder and reverence that transcended the immediate moment. Even the smallest details contributed to memory and legacy. The flicker of a candle in a corner, the unexpected shape of a peeled apple, or the mysterious rustle of leaves outside could become iconic elements in a family's recollection of the night. These moments, seemingly ordinary at the time, acquired weight and meaning, forming a tapestry of sensory and emotional experiences that anchored the season in the hearts and minds of participants. Superstitions and rituals also left their mark. Children and adults alike carried forward practices that had been learned or observed, adapting them to new contexts while maintaining their symbolic significance. The blend of imagination, observation, and belief nurtured a cultural continuity, linking past generations to present ones through shared experience and understanding of the mystical elements of Halloween. Ultimately, the night of Halloween in 1890 was not merely an evening of games and festivities. It was an immersive exploration of human imagination, cultural identity, and the mysterious forces believed to inhabit the world. Participants left with stories to tell, rituals to remember, and a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. A reminder that magic, mystery, and wonder could be found in the smallest of actions, the simplest of objects, and the shared human experience. As dawn approached, and the first light of morning touched the rooftops and streets, the legacy of the night persisted. The candlelight may have faded, the apple peelings swept away, and the charms stored safely, but the essence of Halloween, its mystery, its joy, its reflection on life and death, remained alive in memory. Victorian Halloween of 1890 had achieved something remarkable. It had created an enduring night of curiosity, imagination, and connection, leaving participants enriched, inspired, and forever touched by the subtle magic of All Hallows Eve.